Hello, and you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hurley, and on today's show, we are previewing the big game, the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Final. Some people call it the El Clasico football. I christened it during the week as El Gaelico, just to give it a bit of an Irish context there. But this is a huge game between Dublin and Kerry. What is it about Dublin and Kerry? That's what they say on the RT promos all the time, and we are definitely looking forward to this game. And I'm delighted to be joined by Aaron Prendergast from Gaelic Games Fan TV. Discuss this weekend's brilliant All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Final, and of course the ladies football semi-finals during the week as well. So Aaron, hope you're keeping well at the moment, and I think you are keeping well, because you said to me off air, big news, you are going.
Absolutely, yeah. Thankfully enough, I got a ticket. So big shout out to Four Masters GA in Coventry. If I ever somehow end up in those part of the woods, I'll definitely give them a bell. But no, yeah. Look, I'm privileged. I'm lucky to obviously get a ticket. I'm definitely one of the lucky ones. I know there's plenty of other fans who unfortunately probably won't get tickets, which is a real shame. Like, I think there's definitely a lot of companies selling tickets. I've seen it. Like, I've heard of people in jobs. I know one of my mates was saying that they're raffling off tickets in his job and stuff like that, which is really frustrating to see, because it means that match day going fans aren't going to be able to go and everything else. But I suppose that's always been the way it's been in All-Ireland finals. But look, I'm very, very delighted to be there. I haven't been to a final since 2011, so that probably tells you how hard it's actually been to get tickets, the fact that I haven't been able to go since then. So yeah, no, hugely looking forward to it. And yeah, it's going to be fully packed, fully sold out. It's going to be a cracking game. I think the weather might be terrible, but I don't think we'll care about that. And yeah, no, hugely excited for it.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know about the weather. It was very crappy down in Cork now today, but it's very sunny today as we speak. I don't know why I'm wearing a hoodie now today, but yeah, it's absolutely boiling. But we'll hope it's good weather before an absolutely enthralling game. Obviously, no introduction. Kerry against Dublin, All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Final, 3:30, RT2, BBC2 Northern Ireland, or you can watch it on GA Go if you are further afield, like I was in Scotland earlier on in the year. So huge game. It doesn't need much introduction, and as we said at the top of the show, El Gaelico, it's going to be absolutely packed. It's going to be an absolutely rip-roaring game on Sunday.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a mental game. I think both sets of supporters are going to be bang up for it. It's just when you think of some of the moments and some of the things that have happened down the years, from the games in the 20s and the 30s, Dublin, sticking 3 or 4 goals past Kerry in 1934, our biggest championship win against Kerry. But then you think of what Kerry done to Dublin in 78, putting 5 goals past us on a day where Dublin were favourites. One of the biggest one-sided championship, All-Ireland Championship finals of all time. But then you looked at more recent memory and just some of the moments, the Cluxton winner in 2011, 2013, the classic that was, and the game that produced, 2016, 2019, obviously the replay, Clifford's first final against Dublin, and obviously last year then, Sean O'Shea scoring the winner from 50 odd yards in the last minute. So it's when you look down through history, it's as much as you talk about players and matchups and everything else, it's always been games that have been decided on moments. It's always been key moments, and whether it's a late free, a penalty, a decision, a moment of brilliance, a mistake, they always go down to the wire. And I think, to be honest, this weekend will probably be no different. It would be a big surprise if either side beat another comfortably. I think that I'd be very surprised if that happened. You never know. To be fair, nobody expected Dublin to beat Mayo in the way that they did, and no one expected Kerry to be thrown, the way that they did. So you never quite know in Gaelic football, but I think this will go down to the wire. And I think, yeah, come 65, 66 minutes, I'd be surprised if it's still not in the melting pot. And look, extra time and, possibly even a replay. Who knows? The scramble for tickets could continue in a couple of weeks' time.
Could do, yeah. Obviously, around Joanne Cantwell say on the Sunday game last week that extra time is possible for an All-Ireland final. I actually know that going to Limerick and Kilkenny, but it is definitely possible. But we'll move on to the two teams first of all, and we'll talk about a bit about Kerry first. We'll talk about the enemy, according to yourself anyway, Aaron. Of course, I'm totally neutral in this, so I'll just stay on the fence in all this. But Kerry, They had a rocky start to the championship. Let's just say that, like, against Clare Tipperary were always going to be pushovers. I actually watched the Tipperary game during the week. Bit of a waste of time. I was just collecting stats and stuff like that. I don't know why I watched it in the end, but them two games were a bit of a waste of time, and Kerry got the job done there. But really, the two games that kind of changed their season. I don't know about yourself, Aaron, but I thought it was the Mayo game first of all in Fitzgerald Stadium, where Mayo beat them by 5 points. Owen McLaughlin scoring that goal. And Cork putting them under all sorts of pressure in Parky Heath. Kerry come out the right side of that one. And actually, funny enough, on the Irish Examiner this week, Jack O'Connor said the Cork game changed Kerry's season. And then after the Cork game, they seem to have exploded after that, beating Loud pretty comprehensively. Tyrone, as you said. Derry wasn't the best performance, but they got over the line. So would you agree with Jack O'Connor's comments there, say that Cork was probably the match that changed Kerry's season?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think there was probably too many players that weren't performing up until that point. Like, there were too many players that weren't producing their best. Like Sean O'Shea was having a very quiet year. Defensively, they were getting pulled apart time and time again. David Clifford was doing what David Clifford does, and he to be fair to him, he was performing and doing his absolute best. And obviously with the loss of his mum as well, everything in between, with everything that happened there, like, it was a very difficult year for the Cliffords. But to be fair, they were both, they've both been very, very good throughout the entirety of the championship season. It just felt like, because throughout the league, like, I think it's probably clear to say the league, I don't think they took seriously at all. I think the most important thing for them was just to stay up, get over the line. There was a lot of players obviously missing with club commitments and everything else. So I think the most important thing for them was just to get over the line and stay up. I think they probably carried some of those bad habits into the championship. And I think really when they lost to Mayo and they had that performance against Cork where they obviously get that dubious penalty, I think it was a massive wake-up call. I think it was a massive wake-up call to say, like, look, you're not invincible. You're not, you can't just turn up and beat teams. Like, you need to produce. And it probably was a huge wake-up call for the Kerry lads and the Kerry players. And it probably was a wake-up call that, you can't rely on Clifford. Like, I was speaking with Liam Brosnan during the week on my own preview, and he was even saying that there was probably too much responsibility, too much emphasis placed on David Clifford throughout the league when he came back and throughout the championship. And, there was too many lads shying away. They just give the ball to Clifford and let him do the business. But I think now, like, more players have stepped up, and whatever Jack O'Connor said to them after the Cork game, they've really woken up. And to be fair, it's not unfamiliar for Jack O'Connor teams to be sluggish throughout the year, and then when it comes to the business end of the championship, they turn up. Like 2009 was obviously the big one and the one that stands out there. So yeah, no, I think that definitely was the turning point, and that was where you seen Paul Gainey, come back to his best. Sean O'Shea come back to his best. Stephen O'Brien's come on as well. Jeremy O'Connor has massively improved. Jack Barry's improved. And yeah, they've improved hugely the more the season's gone on.
Yeah, exactly. So, and leaving looking at Kerry scores, like, this is another question I wanted to ask you, because David Clifford scored 5 goals and 39 points in the championship. Sean O'Shea has hit 234. Brilliant performances by both of them, and they're definitely up for an all-star, if not player of the year this year. But I pose this question to you. Do you think Kerry are over-reliant on Clifford and O'Shea in a way? When you look at the scores, like, the next top scorer for Kerry is Paddy Clifford with 2-7, and then Tony Brosnan with 1-9. Tony Brosnan, unfortunately, will miss this final. But when you look at the Kerry scores overall, are they reliant on the boy genius himself, David Clifford, and Sean O'Shea?
I think, yeah, like, I think when you have two players that are as good as that can do anything in the game at any given moment, like, it doesn't matter who's picking them up, who's marking them, especially with Clifford, there probably is a certain element of over-reliance ever so slightly on them, because they probably don't get the same from Paul Gainey, from Adrian Spillane. Obviously, Killian Spillane was involved last year. He doesn't seem to be involved this year. Whether that's injury, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, they don't seem to be getting, like, obviously Tony Brosnan's injured and he's going to be missing. But when he's come into the side, he's looked all right, but hasn't quite done it. So I think there is an over-reliance on David Clifford and Sean O'Shea, but I don't think it's as easy as just you stop them and you win the All-Ireland. If you stop them, you probably do win the All-Ireland, but I don't think it's as easy as just stopping them. Do you know that way? Like, I think Clifford is unmarkable. Like, he had Chrissy McKaig on him, and he thought, he like Christy McKaigue looked like he'd been hit by a bus after about 10 minutes. He hadn't a clue what hit him, to be honest with you. It was like nothing he ever experienced before. And I think, like, if he does that to Christy McKaigue, what's he going to do to Mick Fitzsimons? Like, if Mick Fitz picks him up, like, he's probably going to tear him inside and out. So I think it's more about containing Clifford and keeping him quiet. And whether Dublin play like Brian Howard in as a sweeper and just try and like cut Clifford off or cut the ball into Clifford, I don't know. You can focus so much on Clifford and O'Shea, but at the same time, Paddy Clifford does step up in big games and big moments. Diarmuid O'Connor scored 1-2 against Tyrone. So I think if you focus all your eggs on Clifford and O'Shea, you will leave other players who can step up. I do agree that, like, I think Dublin will place all their focus on stopping Clifford, or the majority of their focus on trying to keep Clifford quiet and trying to keep Sean O'Shea's influence out of the game. But I think at the same time, you can't neglect Paddy Clifford, who covers so much ground, like in the half forward line, setting up plays, setting up scores. Diarmuid O'Connor is in great form. You've got Tom O'Sullivan, who can burst forward from fullback and pop them over the bar. So I don't think, like, Dublin should completely neglect the others, but I do think there definitely will be a plan for Clifford. I think it would be crazy if Desi just put Fitzsimons against Clifford 1v1, because, like, it's good. Fitzsimons is probably one of the best fullbacks to ever play the game, don't get me wrong, but I just think with Clifford's form in his prime and Fitzsimons coming to the tail end of his career, I think that could be, like, Clifford could really, go to town there. Like, if he can do that on McKaigue, he can do it on anyone, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's an absolutely brilliant footballer, all right, David Clifford, and he could be the top scorer by the end of the final as well, and the top scorer for play. If he does that, he's undoubtedly footballer of the year. And let's talk more about David Clifford, because why can't you when you're involving Kerry? Like, the guy's record has been absolutely incredible since he's come back into the team, and from the Mayo game in the league, I think it was. He's just carried this Kerry team in a way. And when you look at that performance against Derry, it was just exceptional. Like, one of the points he got where he just sat McKaigue down and then curled it over the bar. Like, it's just brilliant to watch. And he's a brilliant player in general. And what I noticed about him over the last few games, whatever you do to target him, he just relishes the challenge. He just gets on with it. He's just a brilliant footballer, and he doesn't care if people give him a few digs or whatnot. He just gets on with his football, and I suppose he is an idol for really the whole country, whether you're not a Kerry fan or not.
Yeah, like, he's not hot-headed or anything like that. Like, I don't think I think he might have got maybe a few yellow cards or maybe a red card earlier in his career at different points, but like, that probably that does happen, and to be fair, he's probably learned from those moments. And like, I always remember the moment with him and John Small in Tralee or Killarney last year in the league, and they'd literally just they've been squaring up to each other, pulling each other's jersey, and then Clifford smiling at John Small gives him a fist bump, and John Small kind of nods at him back. Like, I think like, he relishes it. I think he loves it. I think he loves the pressure. I think he loves and you see this down the years with so many great sports stars who, there's certain players who thrive in the moment, who thrive under pressure, that like the spotlight, that thrive under the attention. And I think Clifford is definitely one of those. Like, I think he performs when the pressure is at its biggest. And, like, that's what's worrying from a Dublin perspective, is that going into the final 5-6 minutes, like, he could do something, like, unbelievable, like, at any given moment, and there's nothing that anyone in the stadium can do about it. So yeah, he's generational, and like, he probably will go on to be the greatest of all time, like, barring any huge injuries, or if he decides he wants to go to AFL or something like that. And look, I think we all hope as GAA fans that none of them things happen, because he's a breath of fresh air, really, and definitely, yeah, one of the best. And Kerry have produced some amount of players down the years, but he's something else.
Do you think he's one of the best players in the history of Gaelic games already? Because you look, I know he's only, 22, 20, or maybe even 24 right now, but like, he's just an incredible footballer. He's won an All-Ireland already. He could win a second one on Sunday. He's on the road for breaking nearly every record. And when you look at him in Kerry, I know you have Colin Cooper and Mikey Sheehy, but down the line, Declan O'Sullivan, unreal footballers, but is he one of the greatest in Kerry? We won't say overall because he's still a bit young to say that at this particular moment. But in Kerry terms, is he the greatest Kerry legend of all time, even now?
Yeah, I think he's definitely on his way there. Like, I don't think you'd say he's there just now, because I think ultimately winning trophies and winning All-Irelands, they matter. You know, that's what matters. You look at Colm Cooper, you look at the All-Irelands that he's won. Like, it does matter. Like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't take away from the genius that he is. Like, he could, you know, like he could have an outstanding performance on Sunday, and Dublin could still win. You know, like in 2019 in the replay, I think Clifford kicked 6 points that day, or 6 or 7 points, and 3 or 4 of them were from play, and he was very, very good for Kerry, but Dublin still got over the line. So, you know, he definitely will go down as one of the greatest, but I think to be definitively the greatest in 4 or 5 years' time, I think he has to have multiple All-Irelands, I think, to go with it, because when we look at the greats, when we look at your Mikey Sheehy's, even Stephen Cluxton right now, Colm Cooper, like they all have multiple All-Irelands. They've all done it on the big occasion time and time again. And that's not like Clifford has done it. Like, don't get me wrong, he did it last year. But I think that's what separates, I think, you know, like the greatest of all time type conversations. But look, he's on that way there. And to be fair, like as I said there, like he's gonna perform on Sunday. There's no way. I'd be very surprised if Dublin keep him quiet. Like, you know, he's going to be at his best, and he is going to perform. It's just about whether it's going to be enough to win the championship on the day.
Exactly so, and actually, if he becomes the top scorer, if he surpasses McGuigan, I have to double check this now, but I think if he scores 5 points or more, he surpassed McGuigan, and it's actually first ever year in senior intercounty where he will be top scorer. So that's another feat that he's after on Sunday, definitely. But you said about Clifford and O'Shea that if you mark them tightly, others will step up. One fella that has actually come into the panel back from injury, I know he's on the bench most likely. Teams haven't been announced as of yet, but we'll say this most likely. Killian Spillane. He got the goal against Dublin in 2019 to level it. He's back and fully fit now, apparently, according to Jack O'Connor anyway. So, like, will he be a threat even coming back into the team? Because he's a bit of an unknown quantity after coming back from injury.
Yeah, he definitely could be, and he has a habit of doing well against Dublin. I think he might come on last year as well, and he had a good performance, I think. So he does seem to have something in his locker against Dublin. He's played quite well against us in league games as well. And whether it's the Spillane gene just to turn up in big All-Ireland games in Croke Park and everything else. But yeah, look, he could be. I mean, obviously Tony Brosnan's injured, so Spillane will just slot back into, you know, that position on the bench or whatever. And yeah, like he could definitely be an option. I mean, how fit he is, I don't know. Like, you know, it's one of them. You probably throw him on for the final 5-10 minutes. If Kerry are comfortable and they're looking like they're going to win the game, I don't think you'll see him. But I think if Kerry are chasing the game and they need something, they might just throw him on to set a cat amongst the pigeons. And to be fair, as you said, 2019, he came on. I think he got the goal. I don't think he got the goal, but I think he played a part, obviously, in the goal. So yeah, he's a big player, and to be fair, he has a habit of turning up against Dublin. So yeah, he definitely could have a say. Definitely come on Sunday.
Definitely could, definitely. And when you look at the other aspects of Kerry's team around the pitch, even like a lot of questions have been asked about Kerry's defence, including myself and yourself earlier on the year in the league and stuff like that. But when you look at Kerry's championship record in conceding goals, they've only conceded 2 goals. Owen McLaughlin against Mayo and Garrett McKinless against Derry. Like, that is some record. It has to be said about Kerry. When you look at the sides they've played against, Tyrone, an improving Cork team as well. Like, that's 4 good sides and they've conceded 2 goals. That's 0.5 goals a game against big sides. So, like, that's an incredible record that Kerry have. And a few fellas are underrated, and there's probably Graham O'Sullivan, Jason Foley are doing well at the moment. Tom O'Sullivan, again, is a brilliant marker. So, like, Kerry have very good defenders, and they're probably making us look like fools having deep performances like these in the championship.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, I suppose because last year they didn't put a foot wrong for the entirety of the season. You know, like last year, like they were just, I think they conceded 1 goal from open play in the entire year, and that was Costello's goal in the semi-final. Whereas this year in the league, you know, they've been cut open time and time again. Mayo did the same against them. Like, there definitely is an air of vulnerability. I think if you can drive down the center of Kerry's defense, I think there is vulnerabilities there. I think you've seen Derry do it in the opening 10-15 minutes, and it took Kerry a while to get to grips with it. So I think there definitely is I think there's vulnerabilities with Dublin's defense as well. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think because I think with Kerry, like, they obviously with the system and the turnovers and the work that Paddy Tally has done since coming in with Kerry, you can see the amount of coaching that's gone into the Kerry defense. But I think there are moments where, like, the intelligence maybe isn't there, and I think Dublin could take advantage of that. Like, Derry did take advantage of it at different times. And if you look at some of Dublin's players and some of their forwards that they'll have on show, they could really take advantage of it. So it's going to be really interesting. Like, I think, it's going to be very fascinating, to be honest.
Actually, you mentioned about it being small but easy at times, getting past Kerry's defence, and Derry did it a few times. Obviously, Mayo did it about 5 or 6 times. I remember going to that game in Killarney, actually. But one fella that is a brick wall in between the goal and the Derry or Mayo forwards is Shane Ryan. He's having the season of the league, isn't he? I think, I know he had that controversial incident with Cake in the semi-final, but he's conceded 2 goals in this whole championship. He's produced save after save. That save from McKinless in the second half was absolutely incredible. The saves he pulled off against Mayo were sensational as well. So, do you actually think Shane Ryan has been carried? I know David Clifford and Sean O'Shea, in fairness to them, scoring-wise, have done excellent. But is Shane Ryan a bit underrated in general? Because the saves he's pulled off this year, and the kickouts as well, I think it's an 80% average kickout rate as well. Like, he's definitely pulled his corners Kerry this year. He's definitely done really, really well.
Yeah, no, he's been absolutely outstanding. Like, he's been in an incredible run of form. He keeps making big saves. He's been brilliant under any high balls that have gone in there, that have been lofted in there. And he's been outstanding. He's been perfect from a Kerry perspective, and he's probably definitely in line to probably win an All-Star at this time. I think there's probably not much between him and Cluxton, but you'd probably give Shane Ryan maybe the edge at this moment in time going into the final. But yeah, like, and that's the thing, I think when you have a brilliant goalkeeper, it can buy you an extra couple of points in a game. It can buy you an extra couple of wins in a season. I think we've seen that with Cluxton, with Dublin down the years, and I think we're seeing that with Shane Ryan now as well. And I think, look, he'll need to be on his A game, because with Dublin, like, Derry obviously had numerous chances, but will some of the Dublin forwards, who are so ruthless at times in front of goal, will they miss those chances? Will they cough up those chances? I'm not sure. So I think Shane Ryan will definitely need to be on his A game, because there's so many players, so many forwards there to worry about. But to be fair, he's had a great year so far. His kickouts have been spot on. And yeah, he's definitely probably in line to win an All-Star, possibly.
He definitely is, yeah. And we talked enough about Kerry. A lot of positives about the Kerry team. We're 23 minutes in now. We'll talk about Dublin. Brilliant achievement, obviously, to get to the order of the final. And actually, before we get into scores and stuff like that, take it back to the start of this year, Aaron. And I was meeting you on video calls and stuff like that on a regular basis, and you weren't happy with the way Dublin were performing in the league this season. And at the start of the championship as well, there was boos on the hill during the Roscommon game, I can remember, in the group stage of the All-Ireland, and people were getting restless in the Dublin fan base. But then a result comes against Mayo in the quarterfinal, a performance comes, and suddenly everything seems to click again. So, like, it's amazing how Dublin's fortunes have changed in a matter of maybe 2 games against Mayo and Monaghan this season.
Yeah, it is mad, all right. Yeah, like, because throughout the league, like, our performances were very poor. We were very sluggish. We looked disinterested at the best of times, and like, I think there was a huge importance to get out. And at times, like, I was kind of looking at it and thinking, if we had slipped up against Clare, like we probably should have. Against Cork, we got lucky on different occasions. Like, we wouldn't have got promoted. And I think for a team like Dublin, with the players that we have, like, we should be getting back into Division 1. Like, that should be at least the minimum, in my opinion. And then through the championship as well, like, Kildare, I don't think are particular. Like, I think they have a lot of good players, but I don't think they're a great team. Do you know what I mean? And we really struggled to beat them that day in Croke Park. So there definitely was a lot of restlessness, and I definitely didn't see it coming, to be honest. I definitely didn't. Like, going into the Mayo game, I thought Mayo would beat us. I didn't see that second half performance coming. But look, whether this has been a plan all along from a Dublin perspective, just to, be an autopilot through the league and, through the early stages of the championship, and then peak when it matters. And maybe that's been the plan, because we've seen it in moments in games, and I think that maybe has been the most impressive thing from a Dublin perspective is that there's been times in a lot of games this year where we've looked really poor, we've looked sluggish, but then like with a flick of a switch or a flick of a button, we just shift the gears and we turn it on. We did it against Mayo, and even against Monaghan in the last 10 minutes. We started pressing up on Began and started turning them over time and time again. So we do have that ability to shift the gears, to up it by 10, 15% at different stages of the game. And like whether that's a plan or whether that's just we get up for it, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I definitely didn't see it coming earlier in the year. Like I will be honest, like I didn't think we'd have, like looking at how Mayo, like let's not forget Mayo beat Kerry. Do you know that way? Like, and here's Dublin playing Kerry in the final. Like, so I know people would say that was the group stages, but at the end of the day, group stages are important. I think we've seen with Dublin and Kerry winning the group how important they are. So yeah, I definitely didn't see it coming. But look, as a fan, you know, like you support the team no matter what, and you know, coming at, you know, seeing all those goals going against Mayo, I didn't care like about my predictions or what I thought or anything like that, because you support your team no matter what. And you know, we got the job done. We got it done against Mayo. We got it done against Monaghan, and here we are in the final.
Exactly. So first comment has come in here from Sean Sugru. He is a Kerry man, as he said in this comment here. I'd rather see Kilkenny leave the field at the 58th minute rather than come on. Kerry have used experience now, the kingdom to win by 4. Thoughts on that actually, Kilkenny? Kieran Kilkenny, would you start him? Because he hasn't been on form this season, we all know that. But we all know his quality as well. He's probably one of the best footballers in Ireland on his day. And he scored 110 in this championship alone. I think he scored very low tally in the league as well. So he hasn't been on form, but at the same time, 110 isn't bad. So would you start Kilkenny in this game, or would you leave him on the bench like the game against Monaghan?
I think you'd probably start him, to be honest with you. Just because, like, I think I don't know if he's the type of player that I think needs time to settle into a game. Like, he needs probably 10, 15 minutes to settle into a game. And like, I don't know, like if he was to come on, I don't really think you'd see, you know, that much of an, like he's not the type of player that's going to score 1-6, 1-7. He's just going to set up plays around him, maybe score 3 or 4 points. And I think, to be fair, when he came on against Monaghan, I thought he was very good. I thought he performed really well. It was back to his best, and maybe coming out of the team was a bit of the kick that he needs. I think maybe sometimes he does lack a bit of pace. He probably does go, like, he plays a lot of sideways passes and stuff like that, and that can, you know, that probably lended into some of Dublin fans' frustrations earlier in the year, where Kilkenny would get into a good position and he just wouldn't take the chances on, which have been a little bit surprising. But I think for a game like this, a player who's been there, done it, you know, he could be such a key player. And he's one of those players that if he turns it on and has a great game, like that could maybe be the difference. But look, there are other players knocking on the door. Like, does Noel Scully start? Probably not, after what happened against Monaghan. Does Sean Bugler come in? Maybe. I think he's had a very good year as well. But I think Kilkenny, for what he offers and for what he can do on the ball, I would say you start him. Like, there's enough players there that can come on if it's not working. So I'd say start him.
Interesting to see what David Farrell does in that department as well. And another interesting question. Now, I think it's the question on every Dublin fan's lips. Who would mark Clifford? You said at the start of the show it's Mick Fitzsimons, but Michael Darby actually put up an article. I forget what outlet it was. I think it was The Independent or something, or maybe it was RT. He said that the Dublin players will be fighting on who to go on Clifford. They'd be ready for the challenge no matter what. Like, what do you think of that comment? I don't know. Like, it's a bit of a strange comment. Look, from Michael Darby, in all honesty, and so people were actually saying in social media during the weekend. You'd agree to an extent. Clifford is so good. I think you said this on your channel, actually. Clifford is so good that maybe you'd be better off putting your worst man marker on him and leave the other best man markers on somebody else, because no matter what you do with Dave Clifford, you're not going to stop him. So do you think Mick Fitzsimons is going to go on him? And if not Mick Fitzsimons, who else is a candidate?
Yeah, like it is an interesting one, all right, because like Fitzsimons, when he picked him up in the 2019 replay, I thought was phenomenal. I thought he'd done a really good job, and I think he picked him up after Cooper got sent off in the drawn game, and I thought he done very well as well. So it's one of them. Like, could you know, I've thought maybe would you throw Lee Gannon on him, or just throw something different to spice it up, because no doubt Kerry, like I suppose with Clifford, like he doesn't care who he's been picked up by. But if maybe he's anticipating that it could be Fitzsimons, if he sees Lee Gannon go on him, who's a young player, 2 years, obviously in the senior team, and he's picking up Clifford, it could just, people would look at it and think, wow, that's a little bit different. Do you know what I mean? And Lee Gannon's had a very good year as well. So it could happen. It definitely could happen. I definitely don't think that Dublin will sort of go 1v1. I think there will be, they will have a bit of cover there just to make sure that he's not, time and time again skinning his man and getting space to pop the ball over the bar. But it could happen. It definitely could happen. And we've seen in All-Ireland finals, we've seen Jack O'Connor do it, we've seen Desi do it, we've seen Jim Gavin down the years do it. There might be a spanner in the works. There might be something thrown in there that we're not expecting. And maybe someone like Gannon picking up, Clifford. I think I wouldn't put Davy Byrne on him. I don't think Byrne really has the temperament, to be honest with you. But I think Fitzsimons and I think Gannon mightn't be a bad shout. The only thing is it's such a different level to what Gannon would have picked up in the past, and you'd be worried that if Clifford just steamrolls and because with Fitzsimons probably doesn't have the pace, but he has the intelligence and he's been there and he won't panic and he'll stick to his game plan. Whereas maybe Gannon, there might be an element of panic there just because he's obviously, it's his first All-Ireland final. He'll be playing it at senior level. So yeah, it should be interesting. It should be interesting. And to be fair, I do understand Michael Darragh Macaulay's comment to a certain extent, because it's probably just, the Dublin fullback line and defence, they want to be the ones to keep Clifford quiet. They want to be the ones to, if someone keeps Clifford scoreless from play, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if someone was to do that, that it'd probably be man of the match, So yeah, I can understand it to a certain degree, but at the same time, after 20 minutes and he's kicked 3-4 points off you, I don't know if you'd be so happy about chomping at the bit then.
Maybe not, no. But you take it forward to Dublin's forwards in a way, because you have Conor O'Connell with 2 goals and 28 points, Colin Basquel with 5 goals and 16. But actually, it's the third highest scorer of the Dublin team that I wanted to concentrate on. Cormac Costello, 25 points, 100% shot accuracy his last 2 games. Is he kind of a player that rises to the occasion? Because you looked at the Mayo game, he was sensational. Against Monaghan, he was nearly even better in the semi-final. Is he the guy that is producing at the right stage in the season? And is he going to be crucial for Dublin on Sunday?
He definitely could be all right, yeah. He obviously got the goal against Kerry last year as well, which probably came not necessarily against the run of play, but we were looking, it was looking like Kerry were fairly comfortable, and then we got that goal and we shook Kerry for probably about 5, 6, 7 minutes. But yeah, no, he is. He has a habit of turning up in big moments. He's a big game player. Like a lot of the Dublin players, and fairness to Costello, I think that's the thing with the Dublin side, is that there's so much, I think Jack O'Connor and Kerry's defence have a lot more to worry about than what Dublin have to worry about. I know Kerry probably have the better forward in David Clifford, but I think with Dublin, we know that if we can keep Clifford, if we can contain him for large parts, then that could be enough. It depends. Other players might step up, but that's a big step. I think that's 50% of stopping Kerry, is if you can try and nullify Clifford and O'Shea. The problem is with Kerry is that you can keep Basquel quiet, you can keep Con quiet, but then you've got Costello, then you've got Mannion, you've got Kilkenny, Fenton can kick points, you've got Dean Rock who can come off the bench, Paddy Small. There's a lot going on there, I think, for Kerry to worry about. So, and I think that was something we seen in the Monaghan game. I think so much focus was on stopping Basquel, keeping Mannion quiet, keeping Con quiet, and there was Costello who stood up and delivered. And that's the thing, is that you can focus so much on 1 or 2 players, you leave a few others free, then or you get your matchups wrong, or there's an easy matchup. That can be the difference. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see who picks up Costello maybe on the day. Could it be Graham O'Sullivan, or could Tom maybe go on him? Maybe Tom will go on Basquel. It'll be interesting, all right.
It'd be actually interesting to see who from Kerry, if Thomas Sullivan and Gavin White pick up Dublin forwards that don't necessarily track back. Because we know Kerry style of play, Gavin White and Thomas Sullivan, they're brilliant defenders. But once they get the ball, they break. Would that be a plan for Kerry? Do you think they'll put themselves are Dublin players that don't necessarily trap back. Let's just say Colin Basquel, who's had a very good season, but he doesn't necessarily do so. Cormac Costello may be the same. So do Kerry have a plan, do you think, in that side of the game too?
They could do all right, yeah. Like we've seen that obviously against Galway at times. But at the same time, it can be, I suppose it's risk reward, isn't it? Like if Tom O'Sullivan and Graham, I suppose Graham probably doesn't go as forward as much, but if Tom is racing down, Gavin White's racing up, Jason Foley's venturing forward like he was against Derry, like I suppose fair enough if it works out, brilliant. But if it doesn't, you're leaving men free at the back. And I think they're definitely, I think, there will be players who will track back. Like I think Fenton will drag back. If Brian Howard starts, you'll definitely see him probably play mostly in around the half-back line. And I think a lot of the Dublin lads probably will track back to some extent. But it's just risk reward. And look, that's why you've got so many modern day fullbacks who venture forward. And Dublin will probably be no different. Like if McCaffrey starts, you'll see him do it. If Owen Merchant does it, you'll see him getting forward. Like his goal was crucial in that replay a couple of years ago. So you will see it from both sets of teams. And I suppose it's that risk reward factor of you can get forward, but if you get forward, you have to get back. And I suppose the same probably applies for the attackers as well.
Definitely so. And actually, before we get into the midfield battle that we wanted to touch on, because we touched on Shane Ryan, Stephen Cluxton, I know he was kind of a controversial inclusion into the Dublin team when he came on in that game against Kildare, the Leinster semi-final. That time he came into the panel against Louth in the league. But he is there now. David O'Hanlon has been dropped in the league, obviously. But since Cluxton has come in, he hasn't conceded a goal for Dublin in the championship. They've only conceded 2 goals in the championship, and those were against Laois, where I think Evan Comerford was a goal, but it wasn't Cluxton anyway. Like, has he been good this season? Because a lot of the narrative has been around Dublin being good defensively, and that's why they haven't conceded any goals. But actually, watching games back, Cluxton made a very good save against Roscommon in the Leinster Championship, or the All-Ireland. He made a very good save against Kildare in the Leinster Championship. He did well enough in kickouts against Louth. He's done well in kickouts nearly all year. So do you think he's kind of the calming influence that Dublin needed to come back into the team? And McCaffrey's obviously come back in this year. Like, those players wouldn't have come back if they didn't know an All-Ireland was there for Dublin this year. So there's that driving factor too, that they want to win an All-Ireland.
Yeah, I think so. Like, and I think from a Cluxton perspective, like I think, like, look, David O'Hanlon had a very, very good season. He's making numerous saves and he's been excellent. I remember the save he made against Cork. But look, when you have a legend like Cluxton who can come back, and to be fair, Dublin's defence through the league was very poor. Like, we conceded a goal in almost every game. I think barring the Meath game, the Kildare game, maybe, I don't think we conceded a goal in those matches. So sometimes at Cluxton's like presence, it might have just calmed the full back line ever so slightly. Cluxton, Fitzsimons, Merchant, obviously Lee Gannon, I suppose maybe not so much, but Merchant, Fitzsimons, Cluxton, all used to playing with each other, obviously, in those positions in big games in the past. So it's probably that calm and presence that's made such a difference. And look, he has made big saves. He hasn't looked out of place. Like, you wouldn't think he hasn't played inter-county football in 2-3 years. Like, he's been outstanding. His kickouts have been brilliant. Like, other than that one half blunder against Monaghan, like, he was outstanding again. And he's making big saves. And I think the best thing about Cluxton is that, like, he always makes it look so simple. He makes it look so effortless. Like, when he's kicking the ball out with his kickouts, and when he's making saves, or when he's coming to catch a high ball, like, it almost looks like he's not putting that much effort into it, but it's because he's such confidence and such belief in himself to come out on top every time. And yeah, like, he's been fantastic, and that's why I think, like, between himself and Shane Ryan, like, I think Ryan's probably leading that all-star position right now. But I do think a big performance from Cluxton on Sunday, and I think he could win the all-star.
He definitely can. And John McShea just commented here, Cluxton obviously not coming back to sit on the bench, still a bit unfair, and Comerford, who has done nothing wrong. Well, more so Hanlon, because Comerford, he came in against Kerry and was very dodgy. I don't know, would you agree with that, Aaron? But like, Comerford, I don't know, is that a bit of an over-the-top comment?
Yeah, I suppose, like at the time, it definitely, like, obviously more so on David O'Hanlon, maybe, I think, as well. Your commenter meant to say there. But yeah, like, I think it did seem harsh at the time. We both said it. Like, it didn't, like, because David O'Hanlon, I felt like, made big saves. And it's it's one of them that like it could knock David out. Like, to be fair, I don't think he was in the squad the last day. So like, I don't know if he's been injured or what's happened. Like, I think Comerford is now actually the number 2. So I don't know if David O'Hanlon's picked up an injury, and maybe that had something to do with Cluxton coming back. We just don't know. Because like, you don't really get much out of the Dublin camp very rarely. Like, I mean, like when Cluxton first came back and he was on the bench against Louth, Desi said he was just going to be on the bench all season. And then he was starting a couple of weeks later in the championship against Kildare. So yeah, like it probably is slightly unfair. But look, if Dublin win the All-Ireland, like that's what matters, and they're the standards you need to get up to. Do you know what I mean? And you need to use the best players that are available to you. And look, it might be detrimental to possibly the development of O'Hanlon, Comerford, or other younger goalkeepers, because, you know, how much longer has Cluxton got left? Like, is he going to be there next year? I don't know. Is McCarthy going to be there? Is Fitzsimon's going to be there? I don't know. But at the end of the day, you need to use the players that you have available to you. And if Dublin win on Sunday, no one's going to bat an eyelid, especially, you know, Dublin fans.
And just before we get into a prediction, like, I wanted to talk about the midfield battle, because actually on average win kick-out rate, Kerry have won 89%, Dublin 85%. They might kick the ball short some of the time, but I think their midfielders especially have been very, very good. Brian Howard maybe has been a bit iffy this season, but obviously James McCarthy joins in the midfield. Brian Fenton has been good when it's come to the crunch moments, especially in that second half against Monaghan. But when you look at the Kerry midfield, actually, Jack Barry's done okay this season. Dermot O'Connor's up for an all-star already this season, especially after his performance against Tyrone in the quarterfinals. So do you feel like whoever wins the midfield battle will have a big say on winning the game on Sunday? Because it usually is. I know it's just a cliche in a small way, but like, it's the midfield battle. It's going to be absolutely huge on Sunday between Dermot O'Connor and Jack Barry against the two Bryans and James McCarthy.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, I think, I think so. Like, and I think, to be fair, Jack Barry notoriously has done quite well against Dublin down the years. I think when he picked up Fenton there a good couple of years ago, he done a phenomenal job, and last year as well. So yeah, I think midfield could definitely play a huge factor from a Kerry perspective. It's definitely one of the areas we've looked at for Kerry for a long time and said it's a weakness. I think we've said it this year numerous times. But to be fair, like, Dermot O'Connor stepped up. You know, Jack Barry's had good moments and not so good moments. But like, obviously coming up against that Dublin midfield, if McCarthy does play in there, like, it's such a strong, tough midfield. And Fenton, to be fair, has really come alive in the last few games. And I would be confident enough that Dublin would be able to win that battle with Fenton and McCarthy in there. I think McCarthy's in Footballer of the Year territory at the minute. I think he's definitely in the conversation. And Fenton's been phenomenal as well. Like, you've seen against Monaghan, he was chasing every kick out. He was chasing every ball. And against Mayo as well. So yeah, I think I'd be confident enough Dublin would be able to win that battle. I think Dermot O'Connor, like, he's like, the thing with Kerry's midfield, I've always said it, like, with Jack Barry and Dermot O'Connor, is like they're almost like half forwards. Like, they're not really traditional, normal style Gaelic football midfielders. And I think that's why at times their midfield has been a target and has been bullied, especially with no David Moran in there. But I'd be confident enough Dublin will be able to get on top in that battle, I think.
Yeah, it should be very interesting to see what unfolds there. But an overall prediction, who are you going to say is going to win the All-Ireland? Is your own beloved County Dublin, or is it going to be Kerry to win the All-Ireland, the David Clifford to win a second All-Ireland in a row? It's going to be a huge game. El Gaelico, who's winning it?
Yeah, like, my heart obviously says Dublin. My head obviously says Kerry. Like, I think Kerry probably have the legs more so than Dublin. I think they're a bit quicker, they're a bit sharper. I think the Clifford effect is huge. But at the same time, I think if Dublin can get going and Dublin can stay in it going into the final 15, 20 minutes, I think we've a massive chance. And I think, like we seen last year without Con obviously wasn't playing. There was no Mannion, there was no Cluxton, there was no McCaffrey. Con Basquel didn't even feature in the squad last year. We were missing so many players, and we still nearly pulled it off. So I think there's a lot for Kerry to worry about. I think there's a lot of vulnerabilities there we can exploit. So yeah, look, I don't know. I think I'd probably ever so slightly edge it maybe towards Kerry, but like, as a Dublin fan, at the same time, I think Dublin have a huge chance of pulling it off. So I don't know. Maybe maybe as a Dublin fan, I'd say Dublin will win it, but it's such a hard one to call. Like, it's definitely going to go down to a last minute free or a decision or something, or a moment of brilliance. Like, you couldn't call this either way with any confidence, I don't think.
Couldn't really know. It's going to be a very, very tough one to call. But before we get into the ladies football, I'm going to give my prediction. I'm going to say Kerry are going to do it. Second All-Ireland in a row. I think Clifford is a brilliant footballer. I think the defence is well set this year. Shane Ryan will be absolutely crucial. But I will say, if Dublin can get a goal or two, which is going to be a very hard thing against a brilliant keeper like Shane Ryan, you have a chance. You definitely have a chance. But I just think Kerry, they're going well this season. They've gone well really since the Low game, since they've hammered them. They've learned a lot of lessons from the Cork game at Park and Kiev, and they're probably going to win the All-Ireland in this game as well. So that's a second All-Ireland in a row for Jack O'Connor for the first time in his managerial career, according to my prediction. I'm not sure about Aaron's prediction. He was going either way, but we'll see what happens on Sunday anyway. Conks has come in here. It's the same guy, actually, John. In fairness, Clifford has won most games for Kerry this year, and he probably has. As we said earlier on the show, he's been absolutely outstanding, in fairness. And David Clifford is definitely up for Footballer of the Year. But James McCarthy is too. Look, I think whoever wins it actually will win Footballer of the Year. I don't know, would you, just before we get into the latest football, would you actually agree with that? If Dublin win, James McCarthy gets it. If Kerry win, Clifford gets it.
Probably, yeah, because you'd imagine if Kerry win the All-Ireland, Clifford's probably going to score like 1-7 or 1-8 or something like that. Or he's Kerry aren't going to win the All-Ireland without Clifford playing well. So yeah, you would say Clifford would win it. And the form that McCarthy's been in, if Dublin do come through, then obviously McCarthy would have had to have had a big game. I mean, maybe Dublin have a lot of firepower. Maybe McCarthy won't need to be at his best, but I think he most likely will be. So I'd say, yeah, I'd probably agree with that, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely very interesting to see who wins on Sunday. Obviously, I'm going for Kerry, so we'll have to see who wins on Sunday. And before we end the show, we'll go on to Saturday's LGFA Semi Finals. These are very entertaining, in fairness. Like Kerry against Mayo, 5 o'clock TG Car live in Semple Stadium in Thurles. Like, this is a huge game in general. Like, Kerry have done so well all year, obviously beating Meath 2-8 to 10 points in the last game. They did excellent in the first half, beating Meath 2-7 to 3 points in that half until Éamon Duggan and Vicky Wall come back, brought them back into the game. Kerry have done absolutely brilliant in this championship. Louise Niver-Hurtig is doing very well with 3 goals and 34 points. Daniel O'Leary with 2-9. Actually, their third highest scorer was actually injured for this game. Shearfa O'Shea suffered an ACL injury during the week. Obviously, we wish Shearfa all the best in her recovery, and it's very sad to see a player like that miss an All-Ireland semi-final. Niamh Carberry's done well as well, and Hannah O'Donoghue obviously caught Lynch at the back. And Kaylee Cronin's been in all-star form as well for Kerry. Mayo, they quite a squeak pass against Galway. They scored 1 point from play in the whole second half against Galway through Shauna Howley in the last 5 seconds, no less. So they'll be probably underdogs going into this game. And let's not forget, Kerry scored 4 goals at this stage against Mayo last year in the semi-finals. So Mayo just kind of a revenge on their minds. But to be honest, you'd probably fancy Kerry for this game.
Yeah, you definitely would. Like, I think Kerry's biggest threat has obviously been goals. Like, they've been explosive in attack, like what you said before, like with Shearfa O'Shea. Obviously, that's definitely going to be a big miss, and obviously Louise Namirta has been outstanding from a Kerry perspective as well. And yeah, like the confidence they would have took, obviously taking out the champions in Meath. To be fair, with everything that's gone on in Meath this year and some of the disruption that's been there, I think most people probably would have predicted Kerry to have won that game anyway. But yeah, look, Kerry are the front runners. They probably are the favourites right now to win it. I think, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, don't get me wrong, but after doing what they done, winning the league, and how dominant they were against Mayo last year, I think Kerry should be too strong. But look, from a Mayo perspective, like, they obviously beat Galway. They've had a weird year, Mayo, at the best of times. Like, they've had some ups and downs. It hasn't been a foregone conclusion. Like, I remember them losing to Armagh a couple of weeks ago as well. But you would have to fancy Kerry, like the amount of work that they've done so far this year, and I think their attack, even without Shearfa O'Shea, should still be too strong for this Mayo team.
You probably should. I'd probably score for a Kerry win as well. But just a word on Mayo, like Sinead Cafferty's done well with 2 goals and 9 points. Sinead Walsh with 2-6. Deirdre Doherty's done well. Obviously, Shauna Howley's mostly made off the bench appearances, but she's done absolutely outstanding in this campaign too. But you have to fancy Kerry to win this game and reach their second All-Ireland final in a row. But who will they face? It is a battle of the capital and the real capital, a battle between our own two counties here, Dublin against Cork, 7:30 in Simple Stadium, Thurles and TG4. And just a word, actually, I'll be going to this doubleheader. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting day in general. But Dublin against Cork, Dublin have done decent. Like, they hammered Donegal really in the quarter-final after Donegal knocked them out last season. Hannah Tyrrell's had a good year. Obviously, Carla Rose scored 4 goals and 18 points in the whole championship. Kate Sullivan is just a goal-getter in this campaign with 5 goals and 4 points. Jodie Egan, Jennifer Dunn, they've all contributed in Dublin, are going along very nicely. But the problem is for Dublin, the experienced campaigners are probably out now. You have the likes of Noelle Healy leaving in the last few years, Sinead Goldrick, Niamh McAvoy. So that's a lot of experienced players left the Dublin panel. They have beaten Cork in the last 5 all appearances, though, in league and championship, including the All-Ireland final in 2020. But obviously, Dublin are missing them experienced players. Obviously, your Sullivan sisters are doing well for Cork. Darren scoring 1 goal and 34 points. Ciara with 2 goals and 14. Emer Coyle apparently is missing for this game. I think she has another ACL injury, so obviously we're wishing Emer all the best in her recovery. And the key thing, though, for Cork is they have the dual players all ready to go. Orla Callan, Aoife Healy, Libby Coppinger, Hannah Looney, all ready to go for this game. And Shane Ronan will be absolutely desperate to get one over in Dublin. They haven't beaten Dublin in any competition since 2020. They haven't beaten Dublin in the championship since 2016. So if Cork were to do it this Saturday, it'll be major confidence for Shane Ronan's team.
Absolutely, yeah. Like and like certainly from a Dublin perspective, as you said, there's definitely been a few changes there. A few players obviously not available that have obviously retired in the last couple of years, but still think there's a lot of great players. I mean, Kate Sullivan's been in phenomenal form. I thought she was brilliant the last day against Donegal, and I think after obviously losing to Donegal in the way that we did last year, to bounce back and beat Donegal as comfortably as we did, it was a real sort of statement victory. And yeah, I think from Dublin, like they're marching good. We've had a very good season so far. But as you said, Cork are coming in strong, and obviously having Hannah Looney back on the side, Libby Coppinger, all these players back in, I think it's gonna be a tough test for a Dublin perspective. And I think this game, I think Kerry might comfortably beat Mayo, but I think this one could really go down to the wire possibly.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very tough game. And another aspect to this game as well, I think Cork have scored 19 goals in the championship. They've scored 38 goals overall. So, like, you'd have to imagine Cork need goals to get past Dublin in this game. I think they scored 3 goals in the league, albeit Dublin scored 4 goals against them and beat them in Parky Ring. So, expect a goal fest in this game because both sides love to score goals. You look at Kate Sullivan with 5 goals. Cork scored 19 goals overall, including Orla Callan scoring 3, McCoy scoring 3, Ciara O'Sullivan scoring 2, 100% shot accuracy actually from Ciara O'Sullivan in the last game as well. So expect a goal fest. This could actually be a very entertaining game down in Thurles.
Definitely could be all right. Like, what was it, 5 goals Cork got against Kerry that time and the Munster final a couple of weeks ago. So I think it definitely could be. Like, I think both sides could really go hell for leather, and it could come down to goals. And I think Cork have definitely, like, obviously we're talking about Kerry maybe being as the favourites, but Cork will definitely carry a huge amount of confidence having beaten Kerry earlier in the year in the Munster final, and obviously getting through Armagh as well, who we know are a very sticky test, even if it was without Amy Mackin. So I think Cork are coming in strong. Like, I think Dublin might ever so slightly have enough, but I think Cork have a lot of firepower. And it's, much like the men's All-Ireland final, like this game could really go down to the wire.
Could really, but I'd probably agree with you. I'll probably go Dublin to win this game as well, but ever so slightly. Like, Cork are really improving as the season has gone on. But I'll ask you this, actually. Seamus made a very, very interesting point. Do you think, I know we'll say Kerry will get to the final because I think Kerry are probably better than Mayo at this particular moment in time, but do you think Kerry would actually rather Dublin win than Cork? Because Cork, their record against Cork in the last few years has been very, very poor, whereas Dublin, they hammered the group stage of the All-Ireland. So will they be secretly hoping that Dublin get to the final rather than their Munster rivals?
Yeah, I think to be honest, it could go the other way as well, though. They could look at it and think, what a way to right the wrong against Cork. Like, what a way to get revenge. Beat Cork and win the All-Ireland in the process. Like, it doesn't come sweeter than that. Now, I know beating Dublin, for Kerry supporters and players is always sweet as well, no matter the code. But I think, yeah, to be honest, I don't think they'll be worried too much about it. I think they'll probably just focus on their own game and then obviously see what happens when the game does come around. But I think from a Cork perspective, or from a Kerry perspective, and obviously for Cork as well, like obviously Cork came out on top, but Kerry will want to right the wrongs at the same time. So I don't know if they'll be too focused on what happens in the other game. I don't think.
Yeah, especially when they have a game on Saturday against Mayo, definitely so. But we're both predicting a Kerry and Dublin final. In the ladies, it's the same as the men's. It's a bit boring, doesn't it, lads? But yeah, that could be the final pairing according to me and Aaron anyway. But would you fancy yourselves against Kerry to win the All Ireland? Like Kerry have gone win all year, but Dublin obviously have the history getting over All Ireland. Mayo haven't won, Kerry haven't won the All Ireland since the 1990s. It'll be a massive achievement if they did it. But for Dublin, first All Ireland in 3 years actually seems a possibility now.
It definitely could be all right. Like I suppose obviously with Kerry not having won it since 92 or 93, it's been a long time, and that burden, like that pressure, can weigh a little bit. And Kerry probably are quite, I think they're gaining a lot of experience now through this run they've been on the last 2 seasons. But I think Dublin, certainly, although they've had turnover in the last couple of years, are probably a bit more veterans. They've been there in the big moments. They've done it under pressure, which is obviously a huge thing, in sport and everything else. So, yeah, I think we'd have a great chance. I think Kerry's explosiveness would be an issue, and I think, Kerry could cause Dublin a lot of problems. But I think it would be a great final, and if Dublin get to the final, I'll definitely try and get a ticket and go.
You definitely probably be able to get a ticket anyway, Aaron, because I know the ladies football game is growing, but it won't be a sellout anyway. It'll be actually great to get to a ladies football. I'm actually looking forward to that. Semi-final double header on Saturday in Thurles, so that should be very interesting games indeed. And obviously the All Ireland football final, a brilliant weekend to look forward to, even if it's only 3 games. And of course the club championship is starting, so if you want to keep up to date with the club championship, the Cork Senior Football Championship is actually starting this weekend. So obviously I'm not going to talk about it with Aaron because, to be honest, I don't think he'd have a clue about it, to be honest with you. But if you want to keep up with the Cork Championship, make sure you subscribe to the Southern Star and all that, for all the content on the club championship. Obviously there's a West Cork derby happening on Friday night, and it's actually live on Rebels Online between Castlehaven and Carper Rangers for free. So if you want to watch it, just make an account and watch the game in general. So just boosting the Cork championship there at the end of this podcast. But the All Ireland final is the main game on Sunday. We're definitely looking forward to it. Aaron, thanks for coming on today, and enjoy the game on Sunday. It should be an absolute cracker.
Brilliant. Cheers very much, Matthew.